All right, everybody, I appreciate you joining us this evening. We're doing a test here. Our local Rose Society, along with many across the country with the current situation, we cannot do things in person. So we have a meeting coming up on April 4th that we're going to try virtually, and that's this test. We're going to try to live stream it on YouTube. If you want to check it out, it's going to be April 4th at 10 a.m. I'll put the link in the comments below or the description of the video itself, but it's going to be youtube.com/Hollywood Hayden. Again, it's going to be youtube.com/Hollywood Hayden, and we will put that information in the description below. So this is a test. It's a 15-minute presentation, so if you're watching us on the live stream, sit back and enjoy. If it goes well, we'll do a longer version of this fertilizer program. The whole goal is to talk about fertilization now that we're into the spring. This will be beginners to advanced, and again, this is kind of the quick and dirty short version. We'll do the longer one if everything goes well. Before I get to that too much, again, I want to mention that this is a test, so I appreciate any comments below. Let us know what you think of this. If it goes well, April 4th at 10 o'clock in the morning, we'll do our virtual meeting for the Eastern North Carolina Rose Society. And if it continues to go well, we'll try to do some of these videos as time allows. So back to the presentation itself. Most important thing with fertilization, if it's not broke, don't fix it. You don't need to change things. That's the biggest mistake rose growers make. They're doing just fine, and they see somebody has really nice roses, and they ask them, what do you do? What fertilizer do you use itself? You don't need to change it. If you're growing great roses, stick to what you're already doing. You don't need to change just because somebody else is doing something different. So that's important to remember, because a lot of times people are constantly changing and chasing goals that they may already be reaching. Before you do any fertilization, I can't stress enough to have your soil tested. I recently moved to Eastern North Carolina. We have 100% sand and a very acidic soil. You'll notice on this chart the reason why we want roses to be grown in slightly acidic soil. If you're having trouble reading this, those two red lines are between 6 and 6.5 for the pH. That is the threshold where the best uptake of nutrients for roses. You can see it cuts from nitrogen right down through magnesium and iron. If you're a little too alkaline or if you're a little too acidic, you're not going to have good uptake for your roses. So that's why we always stress for the soil to be slightly acidic. And again, you'll know that if you actually do a pH test for your soil. A lot of counties offer that at a nominal cost, or depending on certain times of the year, it can be free. The other thing we want to stress before we get to fertilization, the soil test, and you got to water. You've got to have either natural rainwater going into your roses, or you have to be consistent with your watering. So you can do all this work, but unless you're going to take the time to water the roses, you're not going to see as big of a benefit. And we usually say about an inch of water per week is fine for beginners. You just want the roses to survive and do decent. And this is where we're going to start to compare contrast. If you want show roses, you want the best, the cream of the crop, that's where you'll try to do 2 inches or more of water per week. And again, we'll go back and forth with the advanced in terms of what you want from your garden. We're going to talk a little bit about the difference between organics and synthetics. Organic fertilizer doesn't really matter to the plant itself. This would be things like compost, alfalfa meal, cottonseed meal, leaves, coffee grounds. They break down slowly, and I've got the picture there of meat, steak and potatoes. They provide nutrients throughout the season. You may have to reapply them, but some of them break down anywhere from 1 to 4 months. So if you have a sandy soil like myself, you want something like that to take its time breaking down. Even if you have clay soil, organics are very good. They give you consistent nutrients throughout the season instead of all at one time. Synthetic fertilizers, things like Miracle Grow, triple 10s or 10-10-10, Osmocote, Wood Ace, they tend to be quick release of their nutrients. So they're usually fast acting. The Wood Aces, the Osmocote, any slow release fertilizer, they'll be specially coated, so they do break down slowly with time, but by and large, on the whole, they're still faster acting than your organics. We call this the desserts of the fertilization, especially once you get toward the ones that break down quick. They supply a rush of nutrients, and then they're depleted in the soil. So that's why you want a nice balance between the two. You don't want just organics. You want kind of a balance between organics and synthetics. So the next couple slides, we're going to go over what we mean for the fertilization program. Then we're going to wrap things up. So again, this is pretty short and sweet. For the beginner program, when you do your spring pruning, that's a good time to do that base coat of fertilization, and that's usually the most important one because everything's really getting going. Something like triple tens, a complete fertilizer is not a bad thing. Again, we're talking about beginners. Something a little bit better would be Osmocote, or I mentioned Wood Ace. Or I know Core Farm, it's a fertilizer supply up here in eastern North Carolina. I get 18, 6, 12 from them, and it breaks down over 2 months. So about a half cup per bush. Then you're done for about 6 to 8 weeks. Then after your flush of blooms come, you want to do it again. So pretty simple. This is your base coat to get you through the spring, and then maybe you do it 1 or 2 more times during the season, depending on how long your season is. For the advance, very similar at the start. A half cup per bush is something slow release. Again, this is your base coat. It's supposed to get you through the next 6 to 8 weeks of the blooms themselves, and so you'll want to repeat this every 6 to 8 weeks. So roughly after a flush of blooms, you're going to want to do this. When I lived in New York, this meant we did it once in May and then once at the end of June. Then we were done. If you're in California or Florida, where you have a longer growing season, you might have to do this multiple times throughout the year. For the advanced program, if you have access to compost, that would be great. We're really lucky. The 2 places we've lived, up in Syracuse, Onondaga County had a great compost facility, and then here in Carteret County, North Carolina, by Morehead City, we have a nice compost facility. So a lot of times this is quite cheap. Our local one sells it for $30 a ton, and I fill up those jugs or those containers you see on the lower right. Those are those Rubbermaid tubs, about 17 gallons. I fill those up and transport them back. But it's great to be used as a mulch or a top dressing, especially early in the season, and then maybe reapply it later. So we're still on the advanced one. Think back to the beginners. You throw some triple tens down, a slow release fertilizer, and you're pretty much done for 2 months. The advanced growers are the ones trying to do row shows. You did your base coat, just like the beginners, but now you want to do a couple cups of organics, and I'll go through a couple of them. Alfalfa meal is nice. Sometimes it's hard to find as a meal, and it looks pulverized there on the screen. I've been to Tractor Supply, and I get the alfalfa pellets. They're just as fine. They take a little longer to disappear in the garden, but they're the same thing. Usually about $20 per bag. That's a good organic to put down, about a cup per bush. Rose Tone is another one. It has a nice mix of different organics in it. So again, a cup around the drip line. In replace of this, sometimes I've used cottonseed meal. Sometimes I've used a product called Harmony that has similar nutrient values to Rose Tone along with microbes. So your base coat, and then a cup of alfalfa meal, rose tone, cottonseed meal, whatever's on sale, whatever you can get for cheap. And then you're going to do that again 6 to 8 weeks down the road. So you'll notice some repeat here. Mulch is always a good thing. I did not say beginners or advanced. Really, everybody should be doing some mulching. It moderates the soil temperatures. It retains moisture. It can cut down on weeds. I've had more luck with some other things, but as it breaks down, it also adds some organics to the garden itself. Usually a couple inches in your garden, 2 to 4 inches of depth is good. You do not want to put it right up against the canes themselves. And if you're like me trying to save money, sometimes I'll use other free options like wood chips, grass clippings. If you're going to do grass clippings, you want them to make sure that they're dried out before you do that. So again, quick recap. For the beginner, triple tens, Osmocote, something slow release at pruning time, and then roughly every 6 to 8 weeks later is all you need to do. If you're an exhibitor, same thing, but at that 6 to 8 week interval, you want to add a couple cups of different organics. A little bit more work for that. Now, as far as the beginners go, back to the liquid part of the fertilization. Once a month, if you want to put down 20-20-20, something like Miracle-Gro, that's fine. Once a month is good enough. That will provide that quick shot of nutrients that your plants can use, and your base coat of fertilization will put down the meat and potatoes longer lasting. If you're going to do liquid programs for the advanced one, roughly every 2 weeks. So again, pretty much everything you do in the advanced program is twice as much, maybe not in quantity, but just application wise. And we break it down like that because the advanced program is just going to require more time. Our beginners, we don't want them to think that they have to do fertilization every other week and things like that. So when you do liquid, remember it washes away really quickly. So the organics you put down before a heavy rain or a good soaking rain. The liquid is opposite. After a good rain, you want to put your liquid fertilizer down. Reason for that is they're very transient in the soil. It's a quick shot of nutrients, and if you put it down and then you have a heavy rain, unfortunately that's all going to wash away, so you don't want that. So that wraps up this presentation. These are a couple pictures of some of my roses in the past. On the left is Moonstone. I won a rose show up in Syracuse, and I appreciate Andrew Hearn helping me with those rose shows, and he takes fantastic photos. And the one on the right is I think that's Moonstone and also gold medal. It looks like gold medal, not one that's usually up on the show table itself. So those are just some pictures from the past. So to wrap things up, that was a very quick fertilization program for beginners and advanced. I hope I didn't go too quick. The main point of this live stream was to test it. Was your audio good? Did you like it? Do you think this will work? I'm going to look back at it, tweak a few things if anything went wrong. This is really just a run through. If it goes well, look for more videos like this on the live stream on youtube.com/Hollywood Hayden. We will post it on Eastern North Carolina's Facebook page. And if everything goes well, check us out. Saturday, April 4th. I know we're a few weeks out at 10 a.m. This is how we're going to do our meeting. And our meeting is going to be a presentation from myself. It's going to be how to create those rose beds in your garden. So comment below. We'll see if we have any comments in the chat feature of the program. Really want your input. Let me know what you think about this type of format. Given our current situation, it seems like a good way that we can still reach people but do our social distancing still being in our own home. So have a great night. I hope everyone's doing well. Remember, you can still get outside in your garden. You're away from people. It's good to get your mind off of things, and you can still do gardening, which is a great hobby for your mind as well as your overall health. Have a good night, everybody.